$60,000 a year starts before sunrise, with a laptop bag leaning by the apartment door. Your manager forwards a utility map from another time zone while the apartment stays dark. You ride the train toward the brokerage workspace, with county names crowding your head. At the GIS workstation, you stack parcel layers over zoning maps, floodplain colors, and transmission corridors. Your mouse draws circles around each substation near the search area. You measure highway distance across aerial clues, counting exits, frontage roads, and awkward turns. By mid-morning, the floodplain layer stains the parcel blue. You earn your place by pinning ugly facts to the parcel ID, the proof seniors use before they spend calls and travel. You trace the ownership block through an assessor record full of family trusts and shell names. You ask a clerk at the county planning counter whether technology campus use fits the zoning district. The dim workspace holds coffee breath, map glare, and the soft rattle of keyboards. Late morning has you marking a municipal boundary on the utility territory map. You scan the regional grid operator zone for service clues that a senior utility call can test later. At midday, a new county lands in your queue, and you hunt for obvious killers. Satellite imagery shows a residential neighborhood creeping toward greenfield land. You flag a protected stream where the developable area starts to shrink. You eat a deli sandwich while the map export runs. Afternoon finds you sorting confidential regional scan material inside the shared parcel folder. You match the deed database against the parcel number pulled from the assessor. You clean the colored tabs until the initial screen stops contradicting itself. Your manager says the fiber node is missing, and you reach for the county route clues again. Toward evening, you update the map legend for the confidential scan. A missed stream buffer sits in the margin like a bruise. A candidate dot sits alone on the map screenshot. The senior analyst says this one is worth a call, and your map screenshot feels like land. You carry the laptop weight onto the bus for the evening ride home. You eat takeout with your roommate while deadline talk hangs over the kitchen table. You scroll a real estate listing after dinner, still sorting the world by parcels. Late at night, a coffee cup cools beside the corrected table. $85,000 a year wakes you with broker pings stacked on the lock screen. Early morning fills the calendar with utility intro calls and landowner follow-ups. You grab the overnight bag by the door for sudden site travel. You steer a rental SUV down a rural interstate past fields, exit signs, and distant transmission towers. You earn more by moving parcels from map to gate, where brokers, owners, counties, and utilities all expect a callback. Morning puts a broker on speaker while you ask about acreage, price, and whether the seller is serious. You ask the land agent about mineral rights before the story gets too clean. You send a confidentiality agreement before the rough parcel sketch arrives. The aerial photo carries crooked boundaries and a farmer's thick marker line. The county courthouse hallway hums before the record search begins. Late morning has you searching an LLC registration for the person with control. You flip through the county tax roll and match the claimed owner against the parcel. You highlight a recorded easement near the access road. A gas pipeline cuts across the potential assemblage. At midday, you eat a burger near the courthouse with dust on your shoes. You photograph the road frontage beside a broker in boots. You crouch by the drainage ditch beside soybeans and trace the water line with the edge of your boot. Beyond the scrubland, an overhead line cuts the pale sky. You judge the narrow road by eye, picturing concrete trucks meeting a school bus on the bend. By afternoon, economic development officials gather in a conference room and talk about jobs, tax base, and noise. A county official asks about water, and you answer in plain ranges while your pen stays off any promise. The rural farm gate hangs quiet after the inspection. You load site photos into the travel folder before the broker starts the engine. Your higher pay comes from carrying messy land questions farther than an analyst can, past the parcel line and into human commitments. The short memo gets a blunt line about a site likely dead from power. Evening brings a call where your manager drills into the missed easement until the room feels smaller. You eat a hotel bar meal with fries going cold beside your notebook. Local news murmurs in the hotel room under laptop glow. Late night leaves your boots drying beside the travel bed. About $120,000 a year meets you in the condo before breakfast, with your phone already turned into a battlefield. Early morning brings a utility engineer asking for a clearer load profile. You pack printed aerials into your bag with outdoor shoes and a vest. The commuter train rocks toward an active pipeline review. You earn more now by owning the search area before company capital starts chasing land. You lead the internal call with energy, legal, tax, network, design, environmental, construction, and finance in the same fight. You explain that strong land control means little when power timing limps behind the schedule. You contrast clean transmission access with a wetland issue that could bend the entire site plan. The rolled site plan rests against a conference chair. Late morning puts you in a utility meeting, pressing for interconnection timelines without letting optimism fill the gaps. You work through substation capacity and transmission upgrades with the utility planner. The utility representative smiles through a service date that sounds more like sales talk than engineering. By midday, you turn the wetlands delineation toward threatened species habitat and mark the constraint in red. You test the civil concept plan against data halls, security setbacks, stormwater ponds, and future phases. You eat a boxed lunch in the utility room while the next agenda waits. Afternoon mud grabs your shoes as you walk the farm track with a civil engineer. You stop on the gravel shoulder and point out where trucks would enter the parcel. A nearby home sits close enough to make the security setback feel tight. You judge the transmission line angle and decide whether the crossing can be used. You negotiate the option agreement for terms, access, confidentiality, and a due diligence period long enough for the hard answers. You push the seller obligation before the lawyers turn business risk into clauses. The quiet parcel feels almost buildable. Toward evening, you assemble the executive site deck with power, fiber, tax, schedule, and community risk in the same frame. Junior staff ask if the parcel stays alive, and you give the answer they can carry into the next call. A public meeting room goes still when someone asks for a schedule guarantee. You make dinner in the family apartment before another region calls. After the kids sleep, you rewrite the recommendation deck at the kitchen table. Late night leaves free time in small patches around a half-filled notebook. The zoning ordinance waits for morning. About $160,000 a year has bought a comfortable house and the job of catching option agreements before they unravel. Before dawn, the calendar sync fills with executive prep, utility escalation, landowner negotiation, council review, incentives, and community risk. You drive the suburb roads toward the airport, with boots in the suitcase and plats in the carry-on. You tuck the blazer over printed plats and option summaries, then zip the garment bag like armor for the next room. Your pay rises because a weak option can trap the company while the grid runs late, and you know how to keep that trap from closing. You bring Energy Council onto the call and choose between phased service and an alternate feed. You treat power as the gate, and bare acreage remains bare acreage. The utility headquarters lobby is polished and tense. Late morning puts the landowner attorney on speaker while the broker tries to soften each hard term. You press for confidentiality, survey access, assignability, geotechnical entry, and environmental testing before anyone celebrates the parcel. The due diligence period stays long in your mouth while the seller pushes for a shorter fuse and a public name. Midday tastes like a protein bar eaten in the rental car before the state meeting. You walk the tax abatement package through road improvements, infrastructure grants, workforce promises, and public hearing timelines. The state economic development officer smiles across the table, and you listen for school district anger under the welcome. Afternoon pulls the corporate real estate war room tight, and you move the room away from study toward a decision. You ask the civil engineering lead whether the grading cost is survivable or whether the slope has killed the site. The fiber route looks strong on diversity until the right-of-way crosses land controlled by a holdout owner. You give construction the laydown area needed, or you tell the team to stop spending time. The creek crossing holds the whole site still. You walk the neighboring property with the broker and picture the future expansion beyond the first fence line. Beyond the target tract, you read road widening, where construction traffic would squeeze past mailboxes and ditch banks. Toward evening, you brief the vice president on risks the company can carry and risks that deserve a clean no. The director hears you say, "The decision is needed this week, not after another round of softer language." Dinner at the steakhouse with lawyers sounds casual, but each story gives away leverage, rumor, or seller fear. A delayed flight eats the family night you promised, before the gate agent changes the board again. In the rental car, the clean authority of the walkaway call stays with you longer than the meeting applause. The better hotel has a thicker carpet, but confidential stress follows you through the door. About $220,000 a year opens a home office where a regional map can move whole teams. Early morning leaves the packed carry-on beside a quiet kitchen, while the coffee maker clicks in the dark.
The black car rolls toward the airport lounge, and the driver already knows which terminal you need. Morning brings airport lounge coffee and eggs between calls with site managers and state contacts. The portfolio review pays because you choose markets, not a pretty parcel at a time. You ask which power market still has utilities that can deliver capacity before competitors clog the queue. Inside the state capitol conference room, you test whether political support for large energy users will survive public noise. A site manager asks for deeper diligence money, and you make the parcel defend its next step. You press entitlement risk, a second transmission path, county confidentiality, and ownership around the edges. The regional map carries more weight than acreage. Late morning brings the utility vice president, and you test load growth against transmission plans and service discipline.
The Commerce Department wants strategic customer language, and you ask whether the utility will treat the campus as a partner or a headache. Midday turns to community benefit expectation, tax structure, water anxiety, noise, and the story residents will hear first. Lunch in the downtown restaurant stays private, while incentives move through careful phrases and lowered voices. At the corporate campus, you brief leadership on region, latency, customer demand, disaster risk, and long-term expansion. You pull sustainability, energy, finance, legal, network, security, and construction into the same decision frame. Afternoon makes you kill a parcel the site manager loved after the negative utility response lands. You end months of work over transmission risk that no incentive package can clean up. You recognize the utility territory turning strategic before the rest of the room has caught the pattern. The private room quiets after polished competition. Toward evening, you review the land bank near existing campuses and mark which expansion parcels deserve attention before the market wakes up. You weigh the expansion parcel against another feed and ask whether the existing campus can grow without boxing itself in. The data center campus is no longer a building in your mind. It is land, power, fiber, roads, politics, and patience. Quiet dinner comes before the headquarters call. You brush your teeth while regions sort themselves behind your eyes. Time zones keep the calendar awake after the house goes dark. About $350,000 a year meets you in the high-end home before dawn, and the first thing in your hand is consequence. Early morning messages from a senior executive stack on the phone before anyone else in the household moves. You open the secure video call from a private office and give directors room to speak before the boardroom day starts. The driver carries you through the headquarters gate while your bag holds nothing louder than a notebook and a charged phone. The company pays you for judgment that steers infrastructure attention towards some regions and lets other names disappear before landowners hear them. You ask where the company must stand ahead, with regional capacity needs spread across power markets and weather risk. Directors enter the leadership meeting with pipeline health, optioned land, utility answers, incentives, entitlement progress, and community risk. You cut into the cheerful update when schedule exposure hides under clean slides. Fruit sits untouched beside coffee in the executive conference room. Late morning brings a utility CEO who wants commitment before the grid investment, and you press for dates that can survive contact with construction. You weigh the state's job promises against the finance head's capital discipline, and the sustainability leads carbon limits.
By midday, the boardroom meal cools while you present a choice to approve a region, pause it, or abandon the pursuit. You frame reputational exposure beside power deliverability, entitlement probability, resilience, and total cost. You push the plate aside before the crisis call lands. Afternoon gathers legal, communications, government affairs, energy, construction, and site selection around a local newspaper that found the project. You decide the response to the delayed utility upgrade and assign names to the next conversations. A county commissioner demands more information, and you give government affairs the boundary between explanation and exposure. You allocate due diligence money and senior attention toward the site that can still earn both. Polished language hangs in the room between truth and agenda. You coach a director in private, then remove the risky pursuit from the pipeline. The grid, the courts, and local voters sit beyond your reach. You attend the family event with the phone face down on the table, the vibration tapping through the cloth. Past dinner, you take the late call from another time zone and approve the next move before the window closes. Unresolved decisions queue beside the glass-walled house while the driveway lights stay on. About $600,000 a year or more reaches the hotel suite through trust built with utilities, clients, developers, and officials. Early morning brings senior client executive messages across the nightstand without a raised voice. A car moves you through the major city between meetings, where other people waited weeks for the room. Clients pay for the judgment behind a transmission queue, the trusted relationships, and the discretion that can move pipelines before a public name exists. You test where tax treatment is changing and which state officials will still defend the package after residents show up angry. You advise the hyperscale client on whether to enter the market, wait for an upgrade, partner with a developer, or walk away. You name the credible utility, the broker who is hyping, and the fragile municipality that may fold in public hearing. The closed-door meeting holds project names nobody says above a low voice. Late morning puts you across from a government leader, and you test whether political defense will last after the first hostile headline. You ask the utility chief whether transmission planning is realistic or dressed up for the meeting. By midday, the private client lunch looks relaxed, while your answers protect confidences from crossing the table. A developer hints at a quiet assemblage, and you hear the land position behind the joke. Afternoon brings campus-scale land positions, powered shells, substations under development, fiber-rich corridors, brownfield conversions, and rural greenfields. You ask whether the powered shell has real power or a sales story with a substation photo. You step from the black SUV onto vast gravel, and the broker stops talking when your boots hit the ground. You map the future phase across the tract, from substation location to grading cost, storm water, road widening, neighbors, security perimeter, and exit value. You align the global strategy across regions and move attention away from the loud emergency toward the market with the stronger power path. You negotiate advisory work with the senior client, set the fee, and protect the relationship without giving away the next lead. The data center corridor remains a faint line on the wrong people's maps. Dinner runs long in a private room, and the wine list lies open beside names spoken under lowered voices. A trusted broker places the confidential call, and you leave dinner with your napkin folded beside the plate.
By the doorway, the old laptop bag from your first GIS mornings catches lamplight like a tool you outgrew but kept. You bring the capital partner beside the utility chief and the developer, and the room warms when land, power, money, and politics point the same direction. You sleep in the comfortable home, while the quiet rooms rest around the world your judgment built.